Well, welcome to 20 Minutes with Mike. I've got a extremely important episode to talk about today, and that is about systems. So we only have 20 minutes, so let's get right to it. So my mentor, Richard James, often said, systems run your business, people run your systems. And if you are not a systems person, or if you don't have systems in your business or your law firm, you might be scratching your head a little bit and going, I kind of get the concept of systems, but what does this really mean in a practical matter? And that's what I really want to talk about today. Is I want to try to simplify this to encourage people to have systems, because even if you're a super solo, and what I mean by super solo is someone who does everything, you have no one working for you whatsoever, having systems is an incredibly effective and important way to run your business. If you have employees or you have people working for you, whether they be out of the office kind of folks, like a bookkeeper or an accountant or whatever, still having systems is really critical. All right. So what is a system? Let's get some definitions down here, because I think that it'll make this conversation easier. What is a system? Well, a system is very simply a predetermined way to do things. So in our firm, we have systems for virtually every single thing that happens in our firm. I mean, we have a criminal defense firm. We don't practice any other area of law. And so there is a finite number of things that can happen. Now, each case obviously is very individual, and our approach to any particular case may vary, but the system is still in place of how we make these decisions. Now, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk through a system that every single office has got to have. And that is your front phone person, who's doing your intakes, who's answering your phone, who is the face or the voice of your business, of your office, right? And what I see, and I work, with a lot of different firms, and I have certainly talked to an awful lot of folks. And what I see is that they don't have a system. They basically answer the phone however they feel like answering the phone at that particular time. And that's the antithesis of a system. Making a conscious decision or even an unconscious decision to just do it however you feel like, shooting from the hip, however you're feeling on that day. Big mistake. So let's talk about how what Rich said, systems run your business and people run your system. So let's start with the intake, the phone. So the phone rings, and our system is that everybody answers the phone exactly the same way. Good afternoon. We're glad you called the Chastain Law Office. This is Mike. How can I help you? Or good morning. We're glad you called the Chastain Law Office. This is Mike. How can I help you? Okay. Now, that script, it doesn't matter who's answering the phone. There's a I forget what they call it, but first the front desk phone rings, and then if that doesn't get picked up within a certain number of rings, then it goes out to other employees, and then if that doesn't get picked up for whatever reason, then it goes to the lawyers. All right, so that's a system. That's a mechanized system that we don't have to mess around with every time. I know if I was sitting in the office, and sometimes if I was there by myself late in the day, or God forbid on a weekend or something, if I heard the phone ring, I didn't need to get up and run over there and be crazy. I knew that it was coming to me after a certain number of rings, and so you just hope that the people will hang on. All right, that's a system. How I answer the phone. good morning. We're glad you called the Chastain Law Office. This is Mike. How can I help you? Or now it would be, good morning. We're glad you called Chastain Jones. This is Mike. How can I help you? Right? What that does is that everybody's answering the phone the same way, and they're answering it in a predetermined way that, you know, I gave a lot of thought to. I talked to people about it. We experimented with a variety of different things, and what we wanted to do is we wanted that initial greeting to be welcoming. Good morning. We're glad you called our office, right? That's really important. You know, people who tend to call lawyers, generally it's not good news, right? There's something going on. There's something screwed up, and they're nervous about it, and they need to be reassured, and they want to know that they've called the right place. So by just simply saying that, and then identify myself, this is Mike, how can I help you? And then we're a go. Now, that's how the phone gets answered. Now, if it's a call, this is, you know, John Smith, and I need to talk to Jessica. Okay, then there's a system of how that would occur. If it's an intake, it's you know, I need a lawyer question. Then out comes a sheet of paper with 10 questions on it. And it is the responsibility. The system is that the person who's answering the phone just goes through those questions, and it's, you know, what's your name, what's your contact information, how did you hear about us? There's a lot of reasons why we want to know how they heard about us, but we want to let them know that we're interested in that. And then, you know, what seems to be going on, right? And then give them an opportunity to, you know, explain what's going on, tell a little bit about their story, you know, so we have a general sense. And then there will be some follow-up questions. You know, what county is this in? You know, have you been arrested? You know, those are the sorts of questions. And then at that point, if they are qualified, then 99% of the time, the recommendation is going to be, well, we recommend that you set an appointment with one of our lawyers. Okay. Now, and then at that point, you know, they've got to make a decision. Are they going to set an appointment, or are they not going to set an appointment? If they're not going to set an appointment, then we're kind of done, right? But if they are going to set an appointment, then there's an entire sequence of events that goes on. The point is that once this was developed and written down so that, you know, you didn't have to memorize it, all of the decision making that would have to go into answering that phone call is taken out of play, and then the only thing is left is to continue to be warm and to listen and to be mindful, and in the moment, you know, make that person feel like they are important, because they are important. They're critical to our business and our livelihoods and the salaries that we pay all the employees. So it is important to us. We want to make sure that if we can help them, we get the opportunity to help them, because, you know, I truly believe that we're one of the finest law firms in Northern California, certainly criminal defense firm. We've been, you know, selected the best criminal defense firm in Northern California a couple times. So, you know, I truly believe that that's something that we earned. That was not something that was solicited. That was something that, you know, we were awarded. And I think that it was earned because of the systems, right? Everybody who calls our office is going to be greeted exactly the same way. Now, the second part of that, the systems run our business. So that runs that part of our business. Now, the second part of that equation is the people run the systems, right? So it's certainly possible that you could follow the script and do it in a, you know, good morning. You know, yeah, we're really glad that you called the Chastain Jones. You know, this is Mike. What do you want? You know, I mean, the execution is critical, right? You know, you can actually follow the script and be completely off-putting, right? So it is a two-part thing. When you develop your system, you need to develop it in such a way that it complements what the employees are going to do. Not everyone is great at answering phones. Not everyone is great at any one particular thing. Not everyone is super reassuring. And in our particular situation, we want to be really reassuring. That's what that script does. Now, I know I'm spending a lot of time talking about that, but it's because it is so critical. If that part of the system breaks down and people call and they don't feel like they're in the right place, and they don't feel like that they're being welcomed, and they don't feel like we're going to care, then that's the end of that conversation. They are never going to hire us. They're never going to give us a nickel, right? I mean, we are in a business. So this isn't, I was a public defender for 17 years, and in all honesty, you didn't have to be nice to your clients because they got pointed to you. Now, the vast majority of my colleagues were extremely nice and very, very dedicated. And I like to believe that I was too. But my point is that I didn't have to be, because I wasn't like I was looking for business. Now, when you're an ass, you make your own life way harder than it needs to be, right? So I'm not suggesting that, but what I'm saying is that this piece of the system is really, really critical, and having the right person in that seat doing that particular sequence, that predetermined way to address that issue is really, really important. So what's another system? All right, so let's say the person's come in and they've gone through our entire process, and they came in and we sat down and we went through an intake interview, and that's all scripted out too. There is a sequence of events that you want to talk about, and in a particular progression, because it is more effective. Now, if you're just shooting from the hip and just doing this willy-nilly, then maybe you get it right, maybe you won't. But when you study it and you go, okay, this is the way we are always going to do it, so let's figure this out, make sure that it's done right. What is this sequence? And I didn't invent the sequence by any stretch of the imagination. That was information that was provided to me by other mentors, and then developing what works for our personality and the message in our branding situation. So but the bottom line is that if we follow the script of our intake, of our sales presentation, because it is a sales presentation, if we follow that, our hire rate is extremely high. I see the hire rate drop when we get off script. And I've been guilty of it myself, where I'm just kind of going along. I'm getting a little cocky maybe, and I'm just not thinking, I'm just not following the script for a whole host of reasons. Maybe I got tired of listening to myself say the story. I mean, there is a certain amount of redundancy. If you're doing, 4 or 5 intakes a week, so you're just doing your rap, and you're going through it. Now, the nice thing about it is that once it becomes a rap, it becomes really natural, and you don't have to think about it. And this is the point, because when I'm doing an intake, I think one of the reasons why I've been successful is I really listen to what they have to say, and I try to determine where the real issues are. I mean, I ask them those questions. I ask them what they're concerned about. I ask them what's important to them. And, you very often get, well, I don't want to go to jail. And, and then a variety of other things. Jail's obviously one of the big ticket items. But sometimes it'll be things like, I don't want to go to jail, and I don't want to have to register as a sex offender. Okay. Which one's more important? Because the ability to negotiate kind of depends on what you're going to give up. If you're in a situation where you're going to have to enter in some sort of plea agreement, and you're going to have to compromise, you're going to have to give something up, then I need to know what that is, and have the opportunity to explore it and ask questions about it, and make sure that they really are articulating what it is that they really want, because not everybody fully understands what they want because they just haven't thought about it enough. But the point is here, as far as systems go, is that there's a sequence and a progression of how we go through those questions and how we talk to the clients. And at the end of the day, when we do not follow the script, the higher rate goes down. Now, so what's the next step? Then the file has to get open, and there is a complete sequence of events. Now, I haven't personally opened a file in years, because we have employees to do that. We have people who run that system, but there is a predetermined system of how the file needs to be put together, and what information needs to be presented, and and the billing information, who's the lead lawyer. I mean, there's a whole progression of things that was carefully developed, and for the most part is followed. And the reason it's followed is because when I go and open up the file, I see that everything's where it's supposed to be. If things aren't where they're supposed to be, then I know that the system wasn't done correctly. Now, this makes the life of the whoever's working for you so much easier. They don't have to, shoot from the hip or develop it from scratch. Man, they just have to follow the directions. Just follow the directions. This is what works. This will be the most effective, efficient way of getting this particular task done, so that you can, do something else. The goal isn't spending all your time opening a file, right? Same thing with closing files. The same thing with the progression is, how the information comes in the case. And once we get enough information, then our system is to set up a meeting with all the lawyers, and we talk about the case just generally. What are we doing with this case? What strategy should we use? Because there's many different ways of going at these things. But the bottom line is that is all predetermined. So all we have to do is follow the system. I mean, that's, and so if a new employee comes in, whether it's a law clerk, a lawyer, one of the, support staff, each system that they're going to be required to be responsible for, we can lay it out to them. Some of them are videotaped, some of them are just written down, but they don't have to figure it out. They just got to follow the directions. It's a little bit like a cookbook. If you want, to make cookies, you got to follow a certain sequence of doing certain things. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't get to spice it up a little bit and put your own personality in it, but just, follow the system. And so this, one pro tip I would say is that a good system is one that has a little bit of wiggle room for the person's personality, especially if they're on the phone. Now, opening a file, there's no, I don't really care what your personality is. This is the way I want the file done. All right, so you do it this way, boom, boom, boom. But when you're talking on the phone, or you're doing an intake, or you're dealing with a client or a prospective client or a vendor, there's you want to have room for your personality to come through, because then it becomes much more genuine. And we've had really good luck with the people who do our phones. That they care, and that's really the bottom line. If a person feels like you care about them, it's going to make a big difference. All right, we are just about out of time. Systems is such a huge subject, but it really can be just broken down into really simple things. So just remember, a system is a predetermined way to do things. It's as simple as that. It's predetermined. It may be very complicated how you do it, but it is set out. It could be very simple, it could be very complicated, but it is just a predetermined way, so you don't have to think about it. And then remember, the systems will run your business, right? But you need people to run the systems. And so they've got to be willing to do that. If I run across an employee who says, I won't do it that way, well, then they're not going to be an employee for very long. The systems are set up in such a way that we know that they work. There goes the wolf, and or I guess it's a wolf. Might be a coyote. It's a wolf. We'll call it a wolf. But the key point that I'm really trying to get across is that make a decision, determine how you're going to do things, and then just go with it. And you can always measure, how does this seem to be working, and can it be improved? Periodically systems should be reviewed. It's not, things changed with COVID, right? We had to do a whole new systems with our intake. We almost did no phone intakes before COVID. During COVID, obviously, we had to do a ton of intakes, by phone and Zoom. So just as an example, you've got to be light on your feet, and you got to be willing to adjust. But the bottom line is you follow what you got to do. All right, everybody, I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions about systems, you want more information, you can get a hold of me at mikechastain.com or mchastain@gmail.com. I'd be happy to help you out. All right, everybody, have a great rest of your week. And just remember, be grateful for what you have and be willing to work for what you want. All right, everybody, take care.